Let's be friends.
Have you not?
And here we go. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to the Ambassadorial Wing. Hope y'all are having a wonderful Monday night. It is the start of a brand new week. I hope y'all had a wonderful weekend. Hope y'all had a very nice and pleasant Mother's Day. And as speaking for myself, it was a good weekend. It was a really good weekend. Got to spend some time with Mother Ambassador. Also got to spend some quality time with Madam Ambassador, of course. And back live with y'all tonight, bringing you what I would regard as an overdue review. And tonight we're going to be discussing the Netflix series, The Sandman. And quick little preface, I had heard about this series, but I didn't give it much thought. And then I was scrolling through Netflix one night, and I was like, The Sandman. I seem to remember hearing something about this. I do remember reading a few of the comics back in the day, and I was like, let's give this a shot. And much like Alice, I was taken down the rabbit hole. And I'm glad I was, because this was a very well put together series. This was a very enjoyable series, and it's from a lesser known character of the DC universe. And honestly, I was pleasantly surprised. Not to mention, it had a very eclectic and very talented cast, to be perfectly honest. But before I get any further into the review tonight, of course, the usual shilling, the usual spiel. You all know it if you are a YouTuber or you check it if you watch YouTubers on a regular basis. Make sure you hit that like button down below. Make sure you share this out with all of your friends. And if you come across this review, either live or on the replay, and you enjoyed the discussion tonight, and you are not subscribed, hit the subscribe button, because here at the Ambassadorial Wing, we talk cinema, we talk streaming series, we talk old TV series, we talk new TV series. If it's made well, if it's fun, if it's worthy of a good discussion, here we discuss it. Because here at the Ambassadorial Wing, we believe in quality over quantity. But tonight, we are going to delve into the dreaming. We're going to delve into the realm of the King of Dreams, the Sandman, aka Morpheus, the King of Dreams. Not to be confused with Lawrence Fishburne's character, the Morpheus from the Matrix franchise. But this, just starting off, like I said, I read the comics off and on throughout my 20s and so on when I became aware of them. And I was like, this is an interesting character. This is an interesting universe. And I was like, let's give this show a chance. And as I mentioned, I am very happy that I did, because I was taken on quite an adventure, quite a journey through the Sandman universe. And where do you start? But with the characters, of course, and with the cast. A very expansive cast and a very well put together cast, I must admit. And several familiar faces, a few faces I had never met before. And I was entertained. I was entranced to a degree, because this is a very enrapturing universe within the DC universe, because it does tie into the more mystical element of the DC universe. And that particular part of the DC universe, whether it's in the comics or in the TV series or the animated series or even the films, has always been intriguing to me, because this series does delve into the mystical, into the supernatural, aspects of the DC universe. And to start off, let's start off with the cast, because I saw some names in here that were very recognizable to me. Some others, not so much, but some actors and actresses that I'm like, I want to see more of them. I want to see more of this. And when the last credits rolled and it said, yes, more episodes are coming, I was like, thank you. This was a series that I didn't know what to expect. I honestly, truly did not know what to expect from this series. And it's this how this series is this first season of the Sandman was laid out, it almost felt like a very anthological storyline where you had the main character pop up periodically throughout the story. But now, obviously, the first part of the series or anything, it does deal with the main character, the Sandman, Morpheus, the King of Dreams, primarily. And no, I'm not going to go shot by shot review. I don't do shot by shot reviews. I don't generally do long form reviews. I talk about the things that are pertinent. I talk about what I enjoyed. I talk about what could have been better. I don't do what other YouTubers do. I don't do every frame of pause. So let's dive straight in. Let's talk about the cast, and let me bring that particular graphic up. Give me just 1 second here. Okay, here it is. And share. Here we go. Get back over here. And I saw this cast and I was like, I can dig this, because there's some names in here that I am very familiar with, some others not so much. I mean, you've got Boyd Halbrook as the Corinthian, um, who was, the last time I saw him in anything was in Logan as one of the Reapers, or the main Reaper that was going after Logan. Loved Boyd Halbrook. It took me the longest time because I kept hearing his voice. I was like, I know that voice. I know that Southern drawl, and I couldn't for the life of me remember who it was. And then the credits started rolling. I was like, it's Boyd Halbrook. I was like, I love this guy. And then, of course, you got Jenna Coleman as Joanna Constantine, or as the Sandman pronounced it, Constantine, of course, from Doctor Who. I actually did a short on this young lady right here, Gwendolyn Christie. Gwendolyn Christie as the devil, as Lucifer Morningstar. And I will repeat what I said in my short the other day, just yesterday, what I hear tonight. Gwendolyn Christie was woefully and terribly was underused in the sequel trilogy, and the conclusion for her story arc, for her character arc in Game of Thrones, was a massive disservice. Between her part as Principal Weems in the Wednesday series, also through Netflix, and here as Lucifer, I know you're not supposed to be a fan of the devil. The devil is not a nice person, but Gwendolyn Christie as Lucifer in this series, she was fantastic. I loved her performance. I really, truly did. Of course, you got David Thewlis. Everybody knows who David Thewlis is. He was in Kingdom of Heaven. He was in Harry Potter. He's done a lot of other work throughout his career. He has become one of my all-time favorite actors and everything over the last several years. We scroll down here. You got Patton Oswalt doing voice work as Matthew the Owl. And then I saw this and I could not help but geek out. Mark freaking Hamill was in the Sandman. He did the voice of Marvin the Pumpkin Man. You've, of course, got Charles Dance, also from Game of Thrones, as Roderick Burgess. Another great pick, another great casting. You got Jolie Richards as Ethel Cripps, an older Ethel Cripps. Her character was somewhat sad, sort of her storyline is kind of sad throughout throughout the series, and I'll go more in detail and everything about that. You've got Stephen Fry. The last time I saw Stephen Fry and everything was, of course, V for Vendetta. Here he plays one of the personifications of the dreams that Morpheus created. And Stephen Fry, he doesn't have a lot of screen time in this, but when he's on screen, he is an absolute joy. He's an absolute delight. I love seeing Stephen Fry in this. Let's see, who else did I recognize in this that I wanted to point out before I move on any further? Um, most of these actors and actresses are what I have honestly never seen in anything before. But this guy here, Tom Sturridge, as Morpheus, as Dream of the Endless. This guy, he did an absolutely wonderful job in his part. He did, and for a character as complex and as difficult to portray, he did a really good job on this. I was honestly surprised at how much I started to care about his character, because at the beginning of the series he's very aloof, he's very disconnected, but as the series goes on you start to become more invested. That's the word I'm looking for, more invested in his character and what's happening to him, and you want to see him grow beyond what he was at the start. And honestly, this is a cast. Okay, there's a couple others I want to point out. Kirby Hal Batista is Death of the Endless. She has one appearance throughout the entire series. She has one part in one of the episodes. I think it's midway through the series. I think it's like episode 4 or 5. And her performance as Death, I've seen some good performances of Death. Obviously, the actor who played Death in the Supernatural series, the older gentleman, not Billy Death. I'm talking about the original Death, the OG Death. It's hard to give personality to a character as complex as Death. And yet the writing for this character and how this young lady portrayed the character, absolutely spot on. Now, for those of you that might not be terribly familiar with the Sandman universe, let me bring this down here for just a minute. I might reference it again. The Sandman universe, and you might be asking, what exactly is the Endless? The Endless are personifications of various aspects of our reality, and in particular different emotions that form what we know as our reality. Obviously you have dream, you have death, desire, you have despair, you have delirium. They all seem to start with D's. Strangely enough. And the Endless are personifications of the Endless. I think is a reference to God, because I think the Endless is another term or name for God in the DC universe. I might be wrong. I know that there is what is called the Presence, which is actually the god of the DC universe, much like in the Marvel universe, it's the one above all. That's the god of the Marvel universe. But I think the Endless are a group that personify aspects of our reality that cannot necessarily be easily personified, and that in turn gives the opportunity to create personifications and characters for these different aspects of our reality. Think of them as the Infinity Stones, yet they're actually thinking, feeling entities. Think of them as a more complex version of the Q from the Star Trek universe. Put it that way. The Endless are very they're very hard to pin down because they evolve and change and grow as they have existed. And that is particularly true of Morpheus throughout this series. First time we meet Morpheus, he's obviously the king of dreams. We see the dreaming, and I'll say this also for the series. The CGI work for the Sandman series was very well done, not to mention the practical that I was was very impressed with the level of realism, but also the more fantastical elements of this series because they're dealing with the the Sandman dream Morpheus's realm called the Dreaming, and you have Sandman's castle, which is very opulent, very beautiful, very massive and expansive, and you have the main entryway, and then of course you have you have this dragon guarding the entrance, and you're like, yeah, that would make sense. And then you have other realms. You have Desire's realm, which is essentially a giant heart that is floating within a void, essentially. And you have hell. And I will say this: I'm glad that they did take some inspiration from Dante Alighieri's um, description of what the Inferno or hell looked like, and used it for the design of hell itself in the series. And you have Lucifer's castle, which of course is massive and darkly beautiful, and it's the set design for this. You have the library within Dream's castle, you have his main throne room, and so on. And the way they were able to meld the practical sets with CGI expansion, I have to admit, I think was better than some of the stuff I've seen recently on like some of the Star Wars series, like on Kenobi and even to a degree the Mandalorian. I'll say this, I found the set design more interesting, more elaborate, more intriguing than some of the stuff that I saw in Kenobi and Boba Fett and The Mandalorian. Now, I'm not saying that it's of poor quality what was in those Star Wars series, but what I will say is if they used the volume to any extent for the Sandman series, they used it sparingly and they used it more elaborately. I think they employed it on a much better scale. Because when you have spaces that are as big and expansive as a physical representation of the Sandman's kingdom, you can let CGI get away from you. Yet with this, it felt it was rooted in some sense of reality. And that was one thing about this show that I really appreciated. But of course, you can have all the great sets and all the wonderful special effects and all the high quality. And I will say this: I think this was much more high quality CGI in some respects than we've seen in a while. You can have all of that, but if you don't have interesting characters and a compelling story, you ultimately have nothing. Now, there are two particular plot threads throughout the first 10 episodes, throughout the 10 episodes of the season one of the Sandman series. One is, of course, Sandman being captured and held imprisoned by this wizard, or as he calls him, the Megas, played by Charles Dance. And then he gets released, and he goes on this journey to reclaim his lost artifacts, his talismans, his tools, as he calls them, his mask, his bag of sand, and his necklace, of course. And then the second part deals with a specific character, Rose Walker, who is unbeknownst to her what they know as a dream vortex. And you have smaller stories built within the overarching narrative of those two particular plot threads. And I think that was what made this series so intriguing, because they would go off on these side routes or these side stories that don't seem to necessarily tie directly into the main storylines, but they do offer an opportunity for character development, particularly for Morpheus. And that was the really um, wonderful thing about this show. Because while you would come to believe that a character that is seemingly exceedingly powerful and would seem very disconnected, he does have a sense of he does have a measure and a growing measure of humanity tied to him. And what Tom Sturridge was able to do with his performance as Morpheus, and okay, I'm going to say this. I don't know what he did particularly with his voice. I don't know if they did any type of audio manipulation with his voice, but his voice for the character of Morpheus had a very otherworldly element about it. And that was something I very much appreciated. I really, really did. And the makeup they did for him was very minimal. They had some, I believe they either used CGI or they did contacts for his eyes. They paled his skin down quite considerably, and his wardrobe was kept true to what the character of Dream would wear in the comic books, in the Sandman comic books. And you go on this journey with this character that you would seemingly have no real connection to, but at the same time, he grows, he changes, he learns that his function is what his purpose is. It isn't going on these quests to reclaim his lost talismans or his tools, as he calls them. It's fulfilling his function. There's one episode in particular. It's after, this series has been out for about a year or so, so I don't feel like I'm going to be necessarily spoiling anything. So no spoiler warnings are necessarily warranted here. But he has this conversation and everything. There's this one episode in particular that I do want to focus on a little bit. There's several I want to focus on during this review tonight. But there's an episode called On Her Wings where Death is, after he's reclaimed all his talismans, he's gotten back to his former state and to his former self. But what he calls the Death and everything, which is his sister and everything as he regards her, he's sitting in a park in London feeding the pigeons. And he's very depressed. He's somewhat disconnected, and he's like, and Death sits down beside him, and she's like, "What's wrong, brother?" It's a very sibling based type of conversation between the two of them, two characters that we would regard as seemingly ageless, infinite, beyond our comprehension, seemingly, and yet they're talking like how a brother and sister would talk to one another. And she's like, "You could have called me. I would have come and helped you, or I would have come to you a lot sooner." He's like, "I didn't want to bother you." And she's like, "That's your problem. You never want to bother anybody." And he reveals to her that part of the reason he was imprisoned was because of Charles Dance's character, Roderick Burgess, was trying to call death instead of, and he got Dream instead. And obviously, Dream cannot bring back the dead any more than death could. And he actually reveals this in their conversation as the episode goes along. And there's almost a hint that maybe what happened to Dream was deliberate, that somehow he was, whatever the spell was that Roger Burgess cast went awry or was somehow manipulated from the other end. And instead of Death being imprisoned or captured or whatever, it was Dream instead. It was Morpheus. And throughout the course of the episode, we see Death do what she does. She goes, collects souls. But she doesn't. This particular personification of Death isn't malevolent, isn't aloof, isn't disconnected. She has learned that death itself, the end of a person's life, is frightening enough that what we as human beings want is a friendly face and a companion. And that couldn't help me. That couldn't help but make me smile a little bit because, you know, as a Christian, as a Catholic, I understand that death comes for us all, and I hope, I do have the belief that death does have a personification, does have a presence or anything. And I like to believe that maybe when my own father passed, it was a friendly face that met him and took him on his way. And I paused the episode while I was watching it, and I was like, I hope it was a friendly face that greeted my father. I hope it was a friendly face that greeted my grandmother when they both passed on. And I hope it is a friendly face that I will see whenever the good Lord calls me home. But, getting back on track here. What the series, I think one of its strengths was making you care, making you believe that these characters can grow and can change and evolve. That they aren't these just far off, distant, aloof, disconnected entities. They feel, they think, and they grow just like we would. And particularly with Dream, I think that is especially true because he is a personification of the collective dreams of all of humanity going all the way back to the beginning. And he would have the most connection to humanity, just as much so as desire and despair and death would. And it was a very satisfying story that I got involved in as I watched the show over the last couple of days because I binged the show. This show was that good. I binged it over the weekend. I started on like Thursday or Friday and I finished it up I think Sunday. No, it was actually Saturday. I finished it Saturday night. And by the time I was done, I was like, I am so glad I sat down and I watched this through from start to finish. I didn't stop. I didn't take a break because this was a very entertaining and very engrossing story. And I think, I mentioned this a couple weeks ago when I was doing my review of season 3 of The Mandalorian. I have started asking myself the question, when is it time for me to move on to different universes? When is it time for me to get involved in other media? When is it time for me to give my time and attention to other shows that are just as worthy of my time from universes that are somewhat familiar to me or not as familiar to me as Star Wars and Marvel have been. And I want to go on a very brief rant here for just a minute. Or I think for those of you that are watching or who will catch us on the replay. Ocean, it's a given. I love Star Wars. You all know this if you watch this channel regularly or if you follow me on social media. You know this. With the announcement of the next batch of films that will eventually come out once the writer's strike is resolved, one film that is like a thorn in my side as a Star Wars fan is the Rey film. And the more I learn about this movie, the more I have to ask myself, is it time for me to pull my attention from the Star Wars universe and give it to something more, just something as deserving, or maybe more deserving, like shows like The Sandman, like Wednesday? Because I will admit, Netflix is putting out shows and movies and so on for the majority, especially their series that have been more engaging and more thought provoking to a degree than some of the stuff that I've seen from the Star Wars universe. Not to say that I disliked any of the series that have come out lately, but they seemed lacking. And the fact that we are getting a Rey film and the fact that they are plagiarizing a story that has already been done in the old expanded universe where Luke Skywalker goes off and reforms the Jedi Order. And instead of it being Luke that does this, it's Rey that's doing it. I have to ask myself, has Lucasfilm run out of new ideas? And James Mangold has got his movie that I'm still very interested in, The Dawn of the Jedi. And of course, Dave Filoni has got his film, which I'm also intrigued by. But I have to honestly ask myself the question, is it time to take my toys and go home and give my time to shows like The Sandman instead? And the quality of the storytelling in this series, the level of acting that was given in this series, the character development, the storylines themselves were a lot more engaging. And okay, let me give you an example from the show itself. You have the character of Rose Walker, and I'll bring up the graphic here again. Give me that, guys. This minute. Okay. Let me scroll down here just a minute. I'm probably going to butcher this young lady's name badly, and I sincerely apologize for it. But you have this young actress here, Vinsu Tsunami. Oh, please forgive me. Vinsu Tsunami, who plays the character of Rose Walker. She is actually the granddaughter of another character played by Sandra James Young named Unity Kincaid, who we actually meet towards the end of the series. And I think we meet her in like the second or third or second to last episode of the series. And she is a victim of what they call the sleepy sickness, which is essentially what happened when Dream was imprisoned by Roderick Burgess. Rose Walker is what they know as a dream vortex, which is a person who can move within the dreams of other people and can essentially damage or create entire new universes by sheer will. And you have this young woman who has all this power, yet she doesn't know how to control it. She doesn't necessarily want to use it. She doesn't necessarily want to be she doesn't want to be the vortex, but it's not her choice. If she was born to it, it was thrust upon her unwittingly. And Dream is torn because he doesn't want to kill this young woman, but her very existence threatens both the dreaming and the waking world, the real world, the world that we inhabit. And that to me is a very compelling storyline. It it gives it gives you a place to think, what if you had all this power, yet you didn't necessarily want it, you didn't necessarily know how to control it, and you didn't necessarily deserve it? Or well, not so much deserve it, but it wasn't something that you ever really wanted, but you've gotten regardless. And yet you are caught up in this world of, well, to quote a very old movie, you're caught up in a world of gods and monsters. And you're just a mere mortal. And you have all this power, but you don't know what to do with it. And you've got this entity is seemingly benevolent. Dream is not a malevolent entity. Now he does some very heavy crap, very heavy stuff, but he only does it to people who deserve it. And everything. He only exerts his power and everything in a what we would consider a malevolent fashion to people who truly deserve it. And I'll discuss that here and everything as the review goes on. But he doesn't want to destroy Rose Walker. He doesn't want to kill her, but to save both his reality and ours, he has this choice to make. He has to do it. You have Unity Kincaid go into the dreaming, go into the library in Dream's Palace and talk with his librarian Lucian, who is okay. I want to pop back over here real quick. Another character that was a real standout was Vivian Okapongo and everything as Lucian. She is essentially Dream's librarian, and she was a very intriguing character all to herself because she was at one time a dream herself. She was a dream that Morpheus created, and she had a purpose, but she decided that she wanted to be more than just a mere dream. She wanted to do more than just inspire people or what have you. She wanted to have a different role, and she took on the role as Dream's librarian. And she's helping Unity Kincaid look up the story of her life if she had lived it. And it's it's a wonderful moment when you see Unity come to Morpheus and say, I was supposed to be the vortex, not my great granddaughter. Let me take on her power, and you can take my life, and I'll do it willingly, because she's like, I've had such a long life as it is. And Morpheus is like, okay, I'll spare your granddaughter, you take her power, and I will take your life, and you can go on to wherever yours are meant to be. So, and as I often do, Morpheus had his librarian. I have my friends and everything. And I would say by the end of the series that Morpheus didn't see Lucian just as his librarian, but also as his friend. I do have my friends pop in from time to time, and tonight we have one of my favorite regulars, what I've come to regard as a very good dear friend, the one and only Mr. Zach Leary. So let's get Zach in here.
Hey, man, how are you?
Doing just fine, Zach. How are you, buddy?
Doing good, man. So I was excited to hear that you were covering this. This is a show I find to be very underrated, and I'm hoping we get more. I'm hoping we get more.
We are.
Are we?
They said at the end of season 1, more episodes are to come. Now we'll probably obviously have to wait for the writer's strike to get resolved, but
that's a whole other thing, dude. If I was working out there, I would not be participating in those strikes. Look, I mean, the writing job is really the cushiest job in all of Hollywood. You just sit on your ass. If you ever go to make a movie, it is like death. I mean, it's the hardest thing to do possible. So they're a little uppity. I think they're complaining. It's like, what's the big deal? You guys get to write and be a part of Hollywood anyway. What I wanted to throw out there first of all is I think they set up a show where you have a powerful main character who is an underdog. That's hard to do.
Yeah, it is. And I talked about that a little bit. I was talking about that a little bit before you got in here, because you think about these different characters. You have Dream, Morpheus, you have Death, you have Desire, you have Despair, you have, I think they also have another character named Delirium. There's another character called the Prodigal, which not sure who that is per se, but yeah.
A few creepy ones in there for sure.
Yeah, and of course you have Gwendolyn Christie, which I gave a big shout out to and everything, as Lucifer Morningstar. Between this and Wednesday, she's got a nice string of shows that she's worked on, and I'm very happy for her, and I'm glad to see her getting better writing and getting better roles.
Yeah, me too. I mean, she is one of the best actresses out there, I think, currently.
Yeah. But yeah, going back to your point, a seemingly omniscient character as an underdog, and the way that they set him up that way, where he gets stripped of all his power by a mortal, Charles Dance playing Roderick Burgess.
Great cameo there too. A little Game of Thrones reunion there.
Yeah, Charles Dance in this series, I saw clips of him as Tywin Lannister. Absolutely loved him, but him in this show, he plays a real asshole, but he does it very well. And I mean a real domineering, overbearing jerk, but he does it well in the series and everything. So your thoughts on that?
Yeah, well, they set up Dream starting off in a bad position in the series, and he's got to rebuild his realm, and he's got to go through the series, and he's trying to find allies among the other endless, and I think that's a brilliant way to do it, because we see superhero stuff all the time. I like seeing somebody who is powerful and yet is not a sure bet. Like he's really having a hard time. I mean, even rebuilding the realm is difficult. He's starting off at a weakened state, and throughout the series, you see him not only gain some power, but you kind of see him evolve in certain ways mentally, which is interesting too. So you have a show for once that has a real character arc for the main character. He's a different guy at the end.
Yes, very, very much so. And that was one of the things that really drew me into this series, because I was familiar with the Sandman comics. I had read a few of them. They were more of an anthology type story that was a pure, superhero arc. And it deals in the metaphysical and the supernatural aspects of the DC universe. And that was something both with the DC universe and also with the Marvel universe that I've always been intrigued by, because while I do like the regular superheroes, Iron Man, Thor, so on, I like the more eclectic characters like Doctor Strange, like the Spectre, like Dr. Fate, and so on. And I especially like the character of Constantine. And of course, we get one of his ancestors, Joanna Constantine, played by Jenna Coleman, who's of course known for her role as in Doctor Who and everything. And she was really good in this. I mean, she only has like 2 episodes that she appears in, but she was really solid in this, which I couldn't expect less from Jenna Coleman, honestly.
Yeah, well, you have a lot of great moments. Like the historical aspect of the show was really great as well. And I'm a little bit fuzzy, so the detail you just brought up, I can't hit the ball back at you on that one.
Okay,
because I had binged it, but I had binged it whenever it released, like a year ago or something. So yeah, I can bring up some of my favorite moments for you, but I'm not going to remember everything.
It's okay. Jenna Coleman plays a character named Joanna Constantine, or as he pronounces, Constantine. And Dream actually references dealing with one of her ancestors, and it was actually in the episode on her wings, which deals with the character of, oh, for heaven's sakes, I gotta pull him up. Just give me a minute here. Hob Gandling, played by Frederick Kingsley. Hob Gandling was a guy from the Middle Ages that Death and Dream had encountered, and he said, "Well, I'm never going to die." He's like,
"Yes, I remember this.
Death is
yes,
simply a and Joanna reprises her role, but
comedy
it's
gold
ancestor. Yes, it very much was or anything, and Morpheus comes to the ramshackle tavern where they had originally met, and it's a flashback. Part of the episode is a flashback episode, and it flashes back to when Death and Dreaming first encounter Rob Gandling, or Robert Gandling as he's known as, and he makes the statement that death is a construct that we just accept. He's like, well, I'm never going to die. And Death and Dream make a wager. Well, once this guy grows bored of life, then death will finally claim him. And it flashes forward to the future or the present day, and Morpheus. It's after his entrapment, and Death says, "You really should go see Hob." And he finally goes back to, and there's this one particular moment between Hob or anything and Morpheus where he's like, I think the reason you keep coming back is because you desire friendship, you desire companionship, and Morpheus is pissed at him, and he's like, I will not be ever coming back here. But when he does show back up at the new tavern, there is just this, he's like, and Morpheus apologizes for his absence. He's like, you were right. I was looking for a friend.
That was one of my favorite sequences in the entire thing, because you see this guy show up beat up and poor and homeless, and then and then the next time he shows up, he's doing a little better, and the next time he's rich, and you just see a Dream like, this motherfucker, you know. Very funny, almost rooting against him. You know, testing him here, but hey, the show has a really original take on the character of Death as well, which was something that really impressed me.
Yeah, I brought that up for you guys in here because we've seen Death in different personifications before. Obviously, with the Supernatural series, you had that particular performance. I'm talking about the other gentleman. I'm not talking about Billy. I'm not super familiar with Supernatural, but the character of Death in that series, particularly by the other gentleman or anything that portrayed him, very well portrayed, very menacing. And I think that was a good portrayal, but the actress who played Death in this, I got to bring it up again, Kirby Hal Batista, she did an absolutely stellar job. And, you know, she made a comment to Death and everything when they were talking, and she's like, I came to realize what humanity was needing. She's like, particularly at their end. She's like, they were needing a companion and a friendly face.
Yeah, well, it's strange because you don't expect Death to be somebody you could have a drink at a bar with. You know what I mean? But she's very friendly. She's like a human being, more so than him, certainly.
Well, particularly at that particular moment. And, you know, that's the interesting thing about these characters, you know, with Morpheus, Dream, Death, Desire, Despair. I made this comment, and let me get your thought on this. They're called the Endless. I wonder if the Endless is a reference to God. Well, specifically the God of the DC universe. Now, it's called the God in the DC universe is referred to as the Presence. But I'm wondering if that isn't a different reference to a creator being in the DC universe.
I would classify the Endless in a similar way as I would the cosmic entities of Marvel. I see big similarities I'm not going to say, I would say more demigods, because these are beings that can be killed. So I don't think really, if we want to talk God, I don't think in Marvel or DC we've ever really seen God. We've seen God-like beings.
Characters, yes. I could see that, that does make a bit more sense and everything, them being more of a cosmic entity than they being a aspect or a personification of God himself.
Yeah, but a reflection of our idea of God, which makes it interesting, because if these are ancient characters, which they are, then any human encounter with one of these beings would result in us believing that that was a or the God. So it's interesting stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, it plays into legend and mythology and all that sort of thing.
Well, and they do mythologize the, if that's even a word,
I think it is. Yep.
Mythologize. They do mythologize the Endless in the DC universe, and they are mythologized in the series itself, because there is reference to Morpheus, the Sandman, the King of Dreams. There is reference, obviously, to, I think he's the most well-known of the Endless.
Is his name Morpheus?
It is Morpheus. Yes.
Okay.
Now there is another episode. It's actually it's the last episode. It's episode 11, and it's actually a two-part, not necessarily finale, but I think more of an epilogue or whatever, because it doesn't.
I hated that. Can I throw that out there? I did not like that little extra episode. They should have left it where it was, in my opinion. Whatever they were doing, I thought it was bizarre. I had liked the entire thing, because let me throw this out there as well, as a part of this point here, which is, this is a show that was shot superbly. I mean, it looks, sounds, plays like a film. Like, it's one of the highest quality shows. Netflix has nailed down the art of putting together high quality looking shows. So when I go through whatever it was, 8-10 episodes, whatever it is, of a show that looks like a film, and I see something like that extra episode, first of all, that episode didn't make any fucking sense, number one. And we're starting off with cats and weird animation and shit. I'm saying,
actually, I really like the animation, but that's me.
Yeah, but what is it? But what is it about?
Well, it's essentially about, it's a, I don't want to call it an. I don't want to call it. Well, I don't. I almost want to look at like an extra issue for a limited comic book series. That's how I would look at it.
That's a good way to look at it, but I felt it diluted it slightly.
No, I don't think so, because it's disconnected enough from the main storyline that it doesn't. I don't think it diminishes the main two plot threads or plot lines or storylines in the first 10 episodes, because you have A Dream of a Thousand Cats, and honestly, I love the animation style. It almost looked like an animated oil painting, and I really like that, and I like the concept and everything of, there was a time when cats actually ruled the world, considering we have two cats ourselves.
That's another weird one. Cats have a weird side of that mythology as well.
Yeah, but I did enjoy that, and I did like the other part, the other story, and that was, of course, Calliope, and the muse. I get it. It's for you. It was kind of a distraction, or it kind of diminished the ending of the main storyline.
Well, I just felt it was bizarre. I was like, what is this? You know what I mean?
Well,
because they had released that originally. They released that like 3 weeks later. Like, that wasn't a part of the original show. They put it out like the next month. So it's like, what the fuck is going on here? I haven't seen it in a long time, but I remember being totally confused by it.
Well, the thing you have to remember, Zach, a character like the Sandman, like Morpheus, he's he's a very abstract being in and of himself. So the stories that include him are going to be very odd as well. Now I can understand anything, the animation style, or maybe just the fact that that particular episode was released so far after the main series had been done with, being a bit jarring. But watching it the way I did, I was like, oh, we get a little bit more. We get two other different little stories that involve Morpheus. Because here's the thing, Tom Sturridge, who plays Dream, he does do the voice of the Cat King, and everything in that dream, A Dream of a Thousand Cats. And he of course makes a cameo appearance in Calliope, where he actually does help free Calliope from her imprisonment by that author. Now, I don't know if you realize this, or if maybe you've just forgotten, but there's an actor in there in that particular episode, Calliope and everything, that I absolutely love, and that of course is Derek Jacobi, who plays the character of Erasmus Fry, who himself was also an author. And I was like, is that Derek Jacobi?
I don't even know who that is.
Wow. Okay, I didn't expect. He is a very well regarded Shakespearean actor. He was actually Claudius in Kenneth Branagh's production of Hamlet, the film.
The thing is, I this is going to sound really bad. I hate Shakespeare. It drives me nuts.
Well, you do realize that Shakespeare is referenced in that episode with Rob Gambling.
I like Shakespearean-inspired shit, okay, where you can have Succession. This is Shakespearean, right? It's Shakespearean. But when we start doing, doth thy troth, it's like, oh, God, I can't.
I love Shakespeare. I love
it. Fine.
Okay,
it's fine.
Well,
it's important. I'll say this. I respect its importance. You have so many great Shakespearean actors. So I appreciate it for that. But I can't sit and watch a Shakespeare play, though I never have. So maybe I would like it.
You should, maybe at some point. You should find a local production, a high quality local production of a good Shakespearean play.
Well, I think you got to see one. If you see one, you got to go all out, right? You got to go find one with McKellen or Stewart or somebody, or Brian Cox or somebody.
Well, Derek
cost you $5,000 though to go see the fucking thing, but who knows?
You could probably find recordings or videos of it on YouTube.
Maybe I can fly out there and put on a security uniform and just walk in.
Well, here's one other thing. He was also in Derek Jacobi was also in Gladiator. I don't know if you remember that or not, but he actually played one of the senators.
That's been a long time too. I like Gladiator, but I haven't seen that.
It's been a while. Yeah, he was in that. He was in that as well. He played. I can't remember the name of his character offhand.
Did you hear they're doing a second one?
Gladiator. I'm thinking. Yeah, and I'm thinking how. I'm interested in the how. That's the thing. That's the thing that interests me. How are they going to pull off a sequel when the first movie had such a close-ended ending? They tied everything up. They should have
Russell Crowe to just play exactly how he played in Thor for the new one.
No, please no.
Yeah. So I don't have a whole lot of time here.
You're fine.
I will say the recreation of the realm was kind of fascinating. Who was his butler character?
Lucian. And it wasn't his butler, it was his librarian.
That's right. That was pretty badass too. Just seeing him reform. It's like it's all dilapidated when he returns and everything. So when does he actually get that thing? So he repopulates it. This is cool too, guys. It's just conceptually when he goes and is taking these dreams and bringing them back to the realm of the dream. Super interesting shit. So even when he is captured, you have like the sleep plague of 19, whatever it is, or 8, whatever it is. The coma outbreak and all that shit.
Yeah,
it's pretty.
It was like the late 1800s. It was like 1880 or 1890, somewhere along in there. So, yeah.
but a lot of good concepts in this. You've got a lot of creepy, like the glutton one, which Desire. That dude was creepy.
That wasn't Desire. That was Despair.
They were both creepy.
Yeah, and the interesting thing was Desire actually goes into the waking world, as they call it, and he actually impregnates the character of Unity Kincaid, and she ends up having the child that eventually leads to her great granddaughter Rose Walker becoming the Dream Vortex. And when
I forgot about
Unity
Rose.
That for me was a really interesting character because
you had her grandmother in there at the end, right? She goes and finds her grandmother and her roots and stuff. And the great grandmother was the one from the first episode, right?
Yeah, she was, and that was one of the really other interesting things. They take these minor little tiny plot points and tie them back to the end of the story. That to me is what I would regard as very well put together writing and very well put together storytelling. Because when you can take a character that was mentioned briefly for like 2 minutes at the most, and then tie her all the way back to the ending of your story and say, oh, hey, yeah, I'm your great grandmother, and I was one of the last victims or one of the last people to come out of the sleepy sickness after Morpheus was freed from his prison.
Well, she had a scene. She had one scene, I believe, and they just found her. They couldn't wake her up. Right? She was a part of that little sequence, and but that's layered storytelling done right, where you're setting yourself up to later pay off certain story elements later on. That ties the whole fucking thing together, and they do that multiple times. So you mentioned Gwendolyn Christie, and I got to run, so I'll leave with this one. Sure. She is so fucking superb, and I know I'm just echoing what you probably have already said, but she could have been a huge asset to Star Wars. There's no doubt about that. Even when you go and look at her in Game of Thrones, she has the physical aspect down cold. Like she has one of the greatest sword fight scenes in Game of Thrones ever shot on film. I mean, she's so good. So you're right. I mean, she's probably the biggest winner of this show. But you had cameos. You had Mark Hamill showed up as a pumpkin guy and all sorts.
Did the voice? Yeah,
the Corinthian. That dude was badass.
Boyd Holbrook. If you remember, I talked about this before you came in. I kept trying to rack my brain because I heard that voice and I was like, I know this voice. I know it. I know it. I know it. And I finally looked it up and I was like, Boyd Holbrook. He was one of the Reapers in Logan. I'm like, how the hell did I miss this?
Yeah, I think he's one of the he's the guy with the robot arm, right?
Yeah, he was one of the Reapers, one of the guys that had one of the prosthetics. But him as a Corinthian and what ends up happening to him and everything, because he was one of the dreams or one of the nightmares that Morpheus had created. And what the conclusion to his story arc, where Morpheus essentially is like, I'm going to revert you back and erase you. And it was honestly it was kind of heartbreaking because he had forgotten his function. He had forgotten what he was supposed to do. And now Morpheus has to come in and clean up his mess.
You know what else was wild? The fucking serial killer convention thing.
That right there was creepy as hell. Not to mention you've got this young kid, Rose's younger brother, Jed, with the Corinthian, and there's a point where one of the serial killers actually corners him and Rose, and the Corinthian comes in and kills him.
I gotta run. I gotta jump on this other thing. If you're still going, maybe I'll come back. I think it'll take maybe 20 minutes.
I'll probably still be going for a little bit, bud. So I'll see you when you get back.
All right. Might see you again. All right.
Okay. Talk to you later, Zach. So, and for those of you that catch us on the replay, Mr. Leary, that was just here, he's got 2 or 3 different channels of his own, one that I've been on numerous times. Zach doesn't stream. He'll come here to my channel and he'll stream, but he doesn't stream on his own channel, which is his prerogative. But he's got Top Shelf TV where he does a lot of entertainment news, movie news. We'll do reviews on occasion. He's got another one called The Last Outlaws, which is more of a political commentary channel. And if you want some real good in-depth discussion, not just with me and everything, but when Zach is doing his Last Outlaw stuff, go check out both those channels. They are worth your time. But I'm glad Zach came in and everything. I hope he gets a chance to come back, because I do want to delve a little bit into the character of the Corinthian, because Boyd Halbrook's performance in the show, he plays a villain very well, because obviously, his performance in Logan, he was great in that. He was absolutely stellar in that. He was one of the standouts. But him as the Corinthian, and there's actually a scene in the episode that Zach references with the serial killer convention when they spell it cereal as in the food rather than cereal as in serial killers. And a bunch of the other serial killers are asking him what his name references to, if he's into leather, if he's into Corinthian leather, if he's a reference to the 2 books that the Apostle Paul wrote in the Bible, everything from the New Testament, and he's like, it's all of it, because he doesn't really know what answer to give per se, because maybe he even doesn't know per se what his name is supposed to mean or what it's a reference to. But that whole sequence where Rose Walker and Gilbert, or Fiddler's Green as he's known, because he's one of the dreams, or what they call one of the arcana of the dreaming of Morpheus's realm, are there at the serial killer convention. And that was a very, I won't lie, a very awkward sequence, and somewhat disturbing, because you have to ask yourself this question: does that actually happen in real life? And I don't think I want to know the answer. I don't think I want to know if all the serial killers from across the United States, or maybe even the whole world, actually get together for a convention. And of course, you have Stephen Fry's character, Gilbert, Fiddler's Green, walking through the convention, and he's popping in all these different little panels and so on, and he's hearing these absolutely horrific things that these serial killers are telling each other. And he's like, I've got to go. And especially the part where he recognizes the Corinthian. He's like, I got to get back to the boss. I got to get back to Dream. And he actually returns willingly to the dreaming instead of having to be captured by Morpheus. And he's like, I'm sorry I left. He's like, but I wanted to experience what it meant to be a human being and live in their world and everything. And Morpheus is very conciliatory, and he says, I'm not going to destroy you or send you to the darkness. He's like, you may return to what you were originally supposed to be doing. And Gilbert, Fiddler's Green, is like, I do so gladly. And Stephen Fry's transformation from Gilbert back into what he actually looked like, great piece of CGI work and everything. And the visualization of this being reverting to his original form, turning into this massive forest and glade and everything, was beautiful. It really was. And Stephen Fry's performance and everything, though he only has like one scene before he meets Rose Walker and they go on their trip to Georgia to for Rose and Jed to her younger brother to reunite. And he was just Stephen Fry and everything. He's such a wonderful actor. He's getting up in years. and everything, but he does such a great job in this. And I'll say this too as well. You know, I mentioned Mark Hamill has a cameo voice performance in the show and everything as Marvin or Mervin, the pumpkin man, the janitor of the Dreaming. And I was like, wait just a damn minute. I know that voice. I know this. And I looked up the credits, and I was like, even with, and not even necessarily without looking it up, it was just confirmed. I was like, that was Mark Hamill. And I was like, just put a smile on my face. It did. It absolutely, you know, anytime Mark Hamill is in anything, I'm like, it's a win. It's an automatic win. There was one part of this show, and I think there was one episode of the show that was a bit more, I want to say, disturbing. And that was the episode that focused on David Thewlis' character, Jack, or not Jack, John. Well, he was the child of he was a child of Jolie Richards, and Rob and Charles Dance, their characters, Roger Burgess and Ethel Cripps. Ethel um, ended up getting pregnant by Roderick, and John was the product of their everything of that pregnancy. Now Ethel ends up running away and leaving Roderick, but what she ends up doing is she ends up taking all of Dream's tools. She takes the mask, she takes the bag of sand, and she takes the jewel, anything, or the ruby necklace. And what ends up happening is David Thewlis' character, what they credit him as Dr. Destiny, he ends up in this diner in the middle of nowhere. The episode's called 24/7. And he uses the ruby to what he calls make the world a more honest place. And he makes people expose their true nature rather than living in the lie of their dreams. And it's, as I say, it's a very disturbing episode, but at the same time, there is merit in it. There is value in it. Very much so. And there's a lot of promiscuity. There's reference to, I'll say it this way, there is a reference to child abuse in a more sexual manner. That's how I'll reference it. I won't say the other word because, well, there's no need. There's a reference to a loveless marriage, and wherein the husband doesn't feel as valued by the wife as he feels he should, and vice versa. The wife doesn't feel as valued by her husband. And by the end, David Thewlis' character, John Burgess, he ends up driving people to the point where they end up killing themselves. And Morpheus comes in and he's like, you're saying you want to create a more honest world, but instead you're revealing just all the dark and ugly and nasty aspects of human nature, and that's not what people truly are. But John has such a broken relationship with his mother Ethel, where she has done nothing but lie to him all his life, that he believes that honesty, even to the point where it damages people, is the only way to live, rather than allowing them the ability to dream and create a harmless lie, or to bear themselves through their dreams, is counterintuitive to what John wants. And, you know, most of you know I don't have a issue with any display of homosexuality in media, the media that I consume. But in this particular instance, I think it's a disservice to that real life issue, because I'm not saying that the writers did a poor job representing people who are gay, but having it go to the extreme that it's taken in this episode, I think was too far. That is what I will say. Where it becomes just base instinct and nothing else, where there's no feeling, there's no emotion, it's just instinctual lust and nothing else. And that's true for some of the other aspects of the episode. But I want to drill down on what John Burgess, or anything, David Lewis's character, is trying to do, and as he says, he's trying to create a more honest world. Dreams are not lies. Dreams are what we aspire to hope to be in our lives. We all have our dreams. We all have those goals that we want to set in our lives that we want to fulfill. And even if we don't necessarily get to the end, it's those dreams that keep us alive. Because it's when we stop dreaming that we, in essence, become dead inside, and we just go through our lives doing the humdrum day to day, and we have no hope for the future. And that's what I think unintentionally, I think that's what the character of John Burgess ends up doing. Because by the end, he ends up destroying Dream's Ruby. But instead of it killing the Sandman, instead of it killing Morpheus, it actually releases all the power that Morpheus had put into that ruby, into that necklace. And he's retained the remainder of his lost power. And that, to me, was a really powerful moment. And going back a little bit, when Dream has to go into hell, and I think he comes face to face with the devil, and we get the impression that this is not the first time that Morpheus has had to go to hell for whatever reason. And he's accompanied by a raven, because, as it's said in this show, Dream always has a raven that accompanies him. And this particular raven is voiced by Patton Oswalt. And I will say this, the character of Matthew the Raven, voiced by Patton Oswalt, he did a wonderful job. He really did. This is a character that is essentially a talking raven. Yet you feel for him, you care for him, and even though he's a minor character, he does play his part, and you hope that no harm comes to him ultimately. And it's a wonderful thing to see when a character as minor as a talking raven gets as well a thought out storyline as the main characters do. And when they bring in the actor and everything who has the voice talent and everything, as Patton Oswalt does, that's a testament to a well put together show and a well cast show. But you feel a real sense of peril and a real sense of danger when Morpheus does go into hell, because he's like, all I've gotten back is my bag of sand. He's like, I have not retrieved the rest of my talismans. He's like, and I'm going as my own emissary or my own envoy rather than sending someone to announce me. And when when Morpheus and Lucifer have their battle for him to regain his helmet, there's a real sense of stakes and there's a real sense that he may not make it out of this. And that for me was a great plot beat. The fact that Morpheus might actually get trapped in hell. Now, obviously, in the end, he does defeat Lucifer, and Lucifer is not happy. And there's actually a really nice stinger episode. There's a really nice stinger scene at the end of the last episode where we flash back to Hades or to hell, and Lucifer is still she's still brewing or still stewing about being defeated by Morpheus. And you have this demon come in that's a representative of all the lords of hell, and you get she makes reference that she's going to do something that'll make God absolutely livid, and that will bring the King of Dreams to his knees. And I'm thinking, ooh, Lucifer's about to do something bad. And essentially her plan, you get the idea that what they're planning on doing is invading all the other Endless's realms. And that's going to be a fight that I'm going to be very interested to see. I'm not going to lie. To see Lucifer and Morpheus at his full strength go head to head. Now, the thing that I found interesting, I'm thinking, okay, you have the ruler of hell, a fallen angel, Lucifer, and you have the Lord of Dreams going to go into a combat. What's that going to look like? But it isn't a physical battle or a battle by means of their supernatural power. It's a battle through metaphor and through imagery. And at the very end, Lucifer has Morpheus down. And she's like, I am anti-life. I am the thing that consumes all at the end. And she's like, what is greater than anti-life? And Matthew's having to shake Morpheus out of his haze and everything, because he's on the ground. He's seemingly defeated here. And Matthew gives Morpheus this very good pep talk. He's like, dreams don't effing die. You don't effing die. And Lucifer says to him, what overcomes anti-life? And Morpheus says, hope. And that's the thing that wins him the fight and gets him his helmet back. And it's, it was a very, there's a interesting moment as Morpheus is being guided to Lucifer's castle, and he comes across another dream named Nada that's been imprisoned there for we don't know how long. And he's like, I'm not at a place where I can forgive you yet. He's like, and I'm sorry for that, but he's like, I can't release you yet. So she's still stuck in hell, unfortunately. And I don't know when this writer's strike is going to end, and I don't know when season 2 of the Sandman's going to go into production, but I am waiting with bated breath for season 2 of the Sandman and seeing what exactly Lucifer has cooked up her sleeve. And, that brings me to another point. The idea that Lucifer is a woman rather than a man, or Satan. Well, the fact that they reference it, they use the title Lucifer Morningstar, and Morpheus goes into very in-depth detail about who Lucifer originally was before the fall. And how they designed Lucifer, they didn't make Lucifer monstrous looking. Obviously, it's Gwendolyn Christie playing the part. And she doesn't have the horns like we would think that Lucifer would. She doesn't have the red skin or anything like that. She doesn't have the cloven hooved legs, at least as far as I can remember. She doesn't. All she has is the more leather like, demonic looking wings. And I think that was a very interesting character design choice, because oftentimes how do we perceive what the devil, Lucifer, Satan would look like in our minds? The classic image, the horns, the red skin, the cloven hooves, the tail, all of that. Not the same here. And I won't lie, I like that design choice. Does that say I'm a fan of Satan? No, by no means. Obviously, I'm a Christian. But then making that design choice, I think, was a good one. And the same is true for the other Endless. For Morpheus in particular, I've already commented on Tom Sturridge's how they made him look. And I think very much in keeping with how the Sandman has been drawn in the comics and so on. Now there was, there was it was a animated movie on HBO Max back when it was still known as HBO Max, called A Death in the Family, and it was in reference to the death of Damian Wayne in the Batman universe. But there's an episode and everything within that anthology that deals with an artist that wants to draw something truly exceptional, and he draws a image of Death, but Death looks different. She's a Caucasian woman, very pale skin, very skinny, but very lovely looking at the same time. And I'm glad that they didn't make Death look the same here. Now, the one thing that is in keeping with the character of Death is she wears, and Death is portrayed as a woman in both versions. As I understand, Death is portrayed as a woman in the comic books as well. She has the it's the ancient Egyptian symbol for life and death. It's known as the Ankh. I think it's how it's pronounced. I hope I'm getting the pronunciation correctly. But they kept those particular character designs. They carried them through from the comic books or from animation into live action. And Zach referenced it before. When you've got a character as elaborate and complex as the personification of death, how do you portray that? And what the comic books did, I think, was give us something familiar, but at the same time unfamiliar as well, somewhat abstract. Because I think what Zach had to say earlier was very true. The Endless are more of cosmic entities than they are a aspect of a creator being, God, as we would call it, or as I as a Catholic, as a Christian would call it, God. These are cosmic beings essentially. Think of them in terms of, like, in the Marvel universe, as death and infinity and eternity and entropy, those particular cosmic beings. Not so much like the cosmic beings of Galactus and the Collector and the Stranger and Lord Order and Mistress Love and so on. Although I think there are some parallels there and everything, but in DC they give more time and they've done more with the Endless characters than Marvel has done with the others I just mentioned. And something else that was interesting, I've seen images. Let me pull this up real quick. I got time. What the heck? Because how the Sandman is drawn in DC Comics is very, very interesting. It's not. Let's see. Sandman comic image. Hang on. Here we go. Okay, here's a good one. Let's see if I can make this bigger or just bring it up. Period. Okay, stop that one. All right, hang on. Screen share. There it is. Okay. All right. Here's Morpheus, and here's Death. The thing I find interesting is these aren't drawn like your classic comic book characters would have been. They're all done in black and white, and that's deliberate. And you have a how they Death here and what we have in the live action series. She's got the necklace, she's got the tank top, she's got the black jeans, she's got the boots and everything, the leather biker boots, as I would kind of categorize them, and that's wearing the same kind. Oh. And what they did with the character design for all these characters and how they cast these characters. Okay, here's a real good image. Okay. You got Morpheus here, Death, or Morpheus, Dream. You've got Death here. You've got uh, Despair here. You've got, I think this is either Bedlam or Delirium, one of the two here. You've got Desire here. I think this one is actually the one they call the Prodigal. I'm not entirely sure who this is offhand. I know they reference they reference the other Endless, but I can't remember who this character is specifically. But if you look at how the characters are designed in the comics, and you look at the cast and how the cast was dressed, it's very much in keeping with what the comic book artists originally. Um, okay, here's one that I really like. This is actually a cover that I remember. I think I should read this issue. I don't have it anymore, but I remember it. Or anything. And Dream or Morphs is pretty very a a theory type of character and everything, which makes sense. And I think what they tried to do in casting the characters and how they portrayed the characters very much is very much in line with what they did. They took the characters and they tried not to stray too far for how they had been designed and portrayed in the comics, but they tried to bring elements of those characters over from the comic books into live action. And that's another particular discussion there and everything that I want to get into. There's been a lot of discussion on how characters from comic books are portrayed in live action or even in animation. Now, with animation, you can get a little bit closer to how the characters are were originally intended to look and how they are interpreted into live action. And with a series and everything like the Sandman, they could have gone off on a big wild tangent and everything. They could have gone way off far afield and not kept in by any means in keeping with what the artist had originally designed and put into the comics. But instead they decided to keep it somewhat grounded but still go just to the right or the left of believability or the abstract to give us a sense of just how otherworldly these characters are, but still make them relatable enough that we are going to be invested in the stories that they are interacting with. and I'll bring up a more recent critique that I have heard. And for those of you who are wondering, am I ever going to get around to doing my review of Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3? Yes, I am. But let me explain why. And this is the reasoning. Me and Madam Ambassador are wanting to see this together, and we're hoping to get to see it in theaters. Unfortunately, she's having a lot of trouble. Right? She's got a very badly injured knee, and it makes it hard for her to get out and get around. Unfortunately, some days are better for her than others. So right now, I'm having to put the Guardians of the Galaxy review on hold. It will eventually come, but I want it to be something that me and the missus can experience together and discuss together. And everything, because this was a series that we saw and everything when we first started going out when we were married, and I want it to be something that we experience together. I'm sure this is something that a lot of you can fully understand and relate to. So, but that brings me to this critique that I've heard that the design of Adam Warlock in Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 is not close enough to what he is portrayed as in the comic books. You have to design a character in the way that is familiar to the audience, but also brings something new and different to the character. And a lot of people are going to say, well, why was Adam Warlock more involved in Infinity War and Endgame and more involved in the Infinity Saga just in general? This was a story choice by Kevin Feige. And also, due to circumstances, Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3's production got pushed back because Disney was stupid enough to fire James Gunn for some poor humor that he had put out on his Twitter. I'm sorry, I don't agree with some of my contemporaries. I don't view James Gunn as any type of child abuser or somebody that endorses or supports child abuse. James Gunn is not that. He may have made some very cringeworthy and poorly timed jokes, but James Gunn is not this evil boogeyman that people portray him to be. But unfortunately, we didn't get Adam Warlock in time for the conclusion of the Infinity Saga. But I think there are other stories that Adam Warlock can be involved in beyond the Infinity Gauntlet and him and Thanos going head to head and so on. And the way that they designed Adam Warlock, I think, is in keeping with the spirit of how he was originally designed, but it also brings a different aesthetic to the character. Now, obviously, I have not seen how he was written and how he was performed by the actor that was cast for him, but I'm willing to give it a chance. Which, as I'm sad to say, is not as true with some of my contemporaries. I know I'm not berating or belittling any other YouTubers and everything, anybody else that does reviews on YouTube or on social media in general. This is just my take. I don't want more of the same. I want something new and different brought to these characters that I am familiar with. That's my personal preference. And, that's kind of brings me back to a point that I brought up before. This may be a discussion that I have on a separate stream, but I wanna elaborate a little bit further. I'm in 5 years going to be 50 years old. And I will have lived half a lifetime, or what would be perceived as a normal lifetime. I actually have lived longer than my late father did, because he unfortunately died before he got into his 40s. And I have invested so much time in the Marvel Universe and the Star Wars universe that I'm kind of echoing what I said before and everything in the Mandalorian review. But I think it bears further explaining now. I want to do discussions and reviews on shows beyond these two universes. I want to spend more time discussing other media, other films. I want to bring other people on board to join me in those discussions. And I might clip this out and put it up as a short or as a separate video. I have to admit to myself, and I don't do so begrudgingly. I have noticed, particularly with the Star Wars universe, not so much with Marvel, that the stories being told lack a certain quality that I had become accustomed to. Now, that's not to say that I hate them or I dislike them, but I feel like I have so much life experience now that I can apply to other forms of media and do entertaining and thought-provoking reviews and discussions on than beyond the Marvel and the Star Wars universes. And I have to ask myself, do these universes still reflect the type of stories that I want to be portrayed? And it brings me back to my review tonight. It brings me back to reviewing the Sandman. I don't know how many views I'm going to get on this stream. I don't know if I'm going to gain any subscribers on this stream. But I felt that the series warranted discussion because it is a well put together show. Now, it does have a few issues, which I've already mentioned here, but the issues do not diminish my enjoyment. They are personal preferences that I have a issue with. They don't diminish the story that was being told. And I think as a conscientious and an honest reviewer and fan, I have to ask myself this question: does it still warrant my time to focus on only two corners of the media universe? Obviously, there's DC out there. Obviously, James Gunn is going to be doing what he's going to be doing. Obviously, there are other shows that I want to discuss. There are films that I want to, from my teens and my childhood, that I want to discuss here. And I think this show really opened my eyes to an, I don't want to say an uncomfortable fact, but a very real world truth. We have forgotten what it means to dream. When you look at the world of the Sandman and the realm that he inhabits, and you see people's dreams made manifest, and you put that in a real world context, what are people dreaming about anymore? And it's become somewhat mundane. It's become somewhat boring. And I don't want to live in a world like that. And the one net positive that has come out of anything regarding the Star Wars media over the last, since 8 or 9 years, is the fact that the sequel trilogy inspired me to write my own trilogy and bring it to life as a audio drama. That's my dream. That's what I want to bring to life. And that's what I want to bring to the broader public. It's what I want to bring to my subscribers. It's what I want to bring to my friends. It's what I want to bring to my family. Both my real life, my actual family, and my internet family. And if a show like The Sandman can inspire me and bring into focus the fact that we as a I don't want to use the word collective, but as a unified whole, that we have seemed to have stopped dreaming and that it's all a corporate factory that has become bereft of dreams, then at some point I have to ask myself the question, what merits my attention more than the next show or movie being put out by Lucasfilm or Marvel Studios or by Disney? And this is separated entirely from the whole political aspect of what's going on in Florida. It solely goes to the stories that are being told. And while there are aspects of these stories that I do enjoy, I spent the last 2 or 3 days watching The Sandman, and I was more on the edge of my seat and more engaged with these characters and this world than I have in the last year or so of the series that have come out from Lucasfilm and Disney. Not that, again, it's a double-edged sword. It's a three-edged sword, to reference a show that I love, and that's of course Babylon 5. And the three-edged sword is the truth, one side's truth, the other side's truth, and the fact of the matter. And the fact of the matter is, this is a show that engaged me more than me just watching and reviewing Kenobi or Book of Boba Fett or season 3 of The Mandalorian. Not to say that those shows were bad, but they were lacking. And I have to be honest with myself, and I want to be honest with you all. I've enjoyed this show that took me a couple days to watch than watching those other 3 series. So, and speaking of a man who shares a common dream, welcome back, my good friend, Zachary. Hey, buddy.
Yo. Hey. So yeah, so that's interesting what you just said. I mean, I have said this before. I am a fan of quality. That's it. I try not to really have too many expectations. I didn't even know who this character was going into the Sandman.
I knew of him in passing. I wasn't a big fan of the Sandman character, but I was like, ooh, I've read this comic before. I've read some of the graphic novels. Let me check this out. And it was worth my time.
Yeah, well, I kind of did the reverse and looked into the comics a little bit afterwards. It had some cool art. Like it had a unique kind of look to it.
Mm-hmm. Well, I actually brought some of it up, I think, while you were gone. Let me bring this one panel up real quick. or this one page that I pulled up. Let me go to this image here. Hold on once. Okay. Okay. Now, bring it back in. Share screen. And share. Okay. I can't make this any bigger, unfortunately. I wish I could. But these are the endless. You've got Morpheus, you've got Dream here, you've got Desire, you've got Death, you've got Despair. I think this is the one known as Delirium. I think this is the one that they call the Prodigal. I'm not 100% sure, but I'm not even sure who this character particularly is. But you look at the design of these characters and you think about, this is a group of characters that you could do some really interesting stories with.
Yeah, it's weird. I mean, the whole concept is weird. It's strange, but here's what's going on. Is it's mysterious, right? It's intriguing to the viewer.
Oh, and that's the interesting thing about this show. It was well received enough that Netflix was like, okay, we're going to invest more resources in a season 2 of this. And they left enough hints to say this is the story that we might be having coming up next. And to give you a brief reminder, there was a stinger scene at the end of the last episode where you have a group of generals in hell come to Lucifer and say, we feel that it's time for us to expand our borders, and if we can't invade Earth or we can't invade heaven, then invade everything else and make everything hell when it is nothing else but hell and heaven. And Lucifer says, I'm going to do something that'll make God absolutely livid and bring Morpheus to his knees. That's going to be a really interesting storyline, to say the least.
Well, I guess so. Does the existence of Lucifer then promote the idea that God is real in this show?
I would have to say yes, because if you recall, when Morpheus goes to hell to redeem his helmet, he gets and he's describing Lucifer before he was or she was cast out of heaven by God. And he's using this very interesting language, this imagery and everything to describe what Lucifer once looked like and what she looks like now to Matthew the Raven, who's voiced by Patton Oswalt.
I'll tell you what, I could have done with a recast with him.
Honestly, I liked Patton Oswalt.
I have a personal vendetta against Patton Oswalt.
Fair enough. Me, I don't, but that's me.
Well, he took a photo with Dave Chappelle and then apologized for it. That's who that guy is.
Doesn't make a difference to me, honestly. I look at his talents as an actor, not what he's done in his own personal life.
Well, I, as a less enlightened human being, have a problem with him.
Fair enough.
Same with Ezra Miller. Look, you said you and I did a Flash show, and I can't see the Flash without seeing all the police reports. I just can't.
I mentioned I've discussed this briefly here and there, but I'll say it here. As far as the Flash goes, it's going to come and go out of theaters, and I'm not even going to watch it. I just don't care. I'm sorry. Okay, I'm not sorry. As much as I like Michael Keaton as an actor, and I like his portrayal as Batman, and I'm going to be discussing Batman 89 and Batman Returns in a couple weeks, he can't save this movie. Sasha Calle as Supergirl can't save this movie. Michael Shannon reprising his role as Zod cannot save this movie. Ben Affleck as Batman can't save this movie. I'm not rooting against it per se, but I hope that across the Spider-Verse, and Indiana Jones crush it. That's how much I don't care about the Flash movie. I really. But looking at the other aspect of DC properties, the Sandman, I do like. Not
I like
because
it too. Yeah, go ahead, man.
Well, getting a little bit into Gwendolyn Christie's performance as Lucifer and how how the character was designed, and I mentioned this while you were gone. They could have gone with the classic depiction of Lucifer, of Satan, but they didn't, and they didn't go with the male actor to play Satan or Lucifer because they've already done that with the Lucifer series. They went with a female actress, Gwendolyn Christie, and she did a great job at this. And I was talking about the battle that Morpheus and Lucifer had for him to regain his helmet. And I didn't know what to expect because I was like, okay, you have two immensely powerful supernatural beings. What's that battle going to look like? Because obviously it isn't going to be a physical battle because that sort of thing would be beneath the both of them. And what they did instead was it was a battle of wills and a battle of imagination. And that to me was very well put together and very well portrayed.
Yeah, it was okay for me. I wouldn't say I loved it. It was okay. Her portrayal, though, I will join you in giving some praise. Is she knew exactly how to play this part. It wasn't, you don't play Satan as Satan. You play Satan as the costume, the setting does the job for you. You don't have to take it over the top. And she played Satan like a nice, friendly neighbor, basically. And it was creepy. It provided an element of uncomfortability there, where it's like, oh God.
Yeah, and I'm very much inclined to agree because I was like, the way Morpheus is describing her, what exactly, we didn't know Lucifer was going to be a her at this point until we actually saw Lucifer and everything when he gets into the throne room. And we're like, oh, Lucifer is being played by a woman, and oh, it's Gwendolyn Christie, and oh, hey, she's kicking ass here, and everything, and she really owns the space. And I have to admit, and everything, I don't know if you caught this when I said it, Zach. I like the fact that they do the way that they designed Hell does draw reference to Dante's Inferno because you have the suicide woods, you have the palace itself, you have the courtyard, which is kind of a reference to the city of Dis in Dante's Inferno. It does have a very Allegherian aesthetic to how he described hell, and I liked it.
Well, yeah, it was set up. You had the great little lead in the dialogue, as you mentioned. I want to throw this out there: is you have Hannibal Lecter, who is one of the all-time horror villains, and Anthony Hopkins said of his portrayal of him is, I didn't need to do anything. The only way to play it is friendly, because you have this great buildup with them saying, hey, what a psychopath, and you go through layers and layers of security to get to him, and he goes, the only way I could do it was good morning. Very creepy.
Yes, I have to agree,
because it doesn't line up with your pre-established expectation. Exactly. So when you get to Hopkins or when you get to Lucifer, that is not at all what you expect. So that throws you off. That, I think that's creepy done right.
It is. And I'm not saying I'm by any means a fan of Satan, but I am a fan of Gwendolyn Christie playing Satan. That is what I will say here.
Let's put it like this: we're fans of fictional interpretations of Satan.
Yes,
is that fair enough?
I will.
I like a good
agree.
evil character. It's like even the Pick of Destiny with Jack Black, with Tim Curry playing Satan. It's like, okay, it doesn't matter. We like bad guys.
Well, Tim, that's not the first time Tim Curry's played the devil. Because if you remember in Legend, directed by Ridley Scott or anything, he does play what we would understand as a very mythical version of Satan, although he's not called Satan, he's called the Darkness. So it's not Tim Curry's first go around as Satan or a Satan. You've never seen Legend?
Maybe I should. Wow.
Well, I know you have issues with Ridley Scott. Some of his movies are hits, others are misses.
I like them.
Okay. Well, either way. It was one of his earlier films he did in the 1980s. I think he did around the same time that he did Blade Runner, the original Blade Runner. Now, it's got Tim Curry. It's got... I can't remember if it's... No, it's not. It's Mia Sara and Tom Cruise.
I might have to look into that. My favorite... Do you have a favorite Satan portrayal?
Off the top of my head... Yes, I can say I do, but he's only in like one or two scenes. Do you remember a movie from the 90s called The Prophecy with Christopher Walken?
I've never seen it, but I'm aware of it.
Viggo Mortensen plays Lucifer in that. And he does a very, very good job.
That's another one I need to see. There's like 2 or 3 of them, right? Prophecy films.
It was a trilogy. I remember the first two. The first one was released in recent theaters. The other 2 were direct to video.
So you're telling me just watch the first one, right?
You could watch the other. Not necessarily, because I did watch the second one and I did watch the better part of the third one. And all of them were enjoyable because, well, you've got Christopher Walken. Christopher Walken, just on his own, he carries those movies.
Yeah, he can. He's good. I would say my favorite Satan is, and I'm curious if you've seen this movie, is Angel Heart with Mickey Rourke and De Niro.
Never heard of it.
That's my favorite Satan. You got De Niro playing Satan.
Okay, there's one other that just popped in my head, being you mentioned De Niro. Devil's Advocate. Never heard of it.
Yeah. It's a little too Pacino for me. You know what he turned it up too much. And you and oh. So okay, I'm not sure about this.
I've been down here.
I know.
Working and doing all of this while he's been upstairs sitting on his ass or something to that effect.
Though. The movie was creepy, how the friends were demons in the hotel and shit. It was okay.
I've only seen it. I saw it in theaters once with Mother Ambassador. I think I've seen it once since then. It's not because I have a particular issue with the movie, just because I don't think it really warrants a repeat viewing. There are some movies that I feel are just one and done. And Devil's Advocate is one of those one and dones. Okay, this wasn't a Satan character, but it was a portrayal of the Antichrist. Have you ever seen any of the Omen films?
I think I saw them both.
Actually, there's 3. There's
the original, and I think I saw the remake, the first remake.
Okay, the one with Liv Schreiber. who plays Gregory Peck's character from the original. There was the Omen 2, and then the Omen 3, The Final Conflict, where Sam Neill plays a grown-up Damien. And how they did the ending of that movie with the return of Christ, I don't know how I feel about it, because it's extremely campy, because you actually have a on-screen confrontation between the Antichrist and Jesus Christ himself. And it's not done well at all. And here's the funny thing. They actually did another sequel. If I remember correctly, it was a direct-to-TV movie that was called The Omen Awakenings, where a group of Satan worshippers essentially bring another Antichrist into the world.
Well, it's just tired. It's like, God, how many Conjuring, Insidious films do we need? Both franchises have a new film. It's like, just do something else. How many Omens do we need? I'm so disgusted by the need to remake shit.
Yeah,
the original remains to me my favorite version. I mean, it might be a little old school, but it's got a creepy vibe to it.
And then that's the idea.
What's like if you remake like a Vincent Price film, it just would never work today. It just wouldn't.
Okay, I'll make a slight argument, but I still prefer the original, The House on Haunted Hill.
I never saw the remake.
I could have swore we actually reviewed it, if you remember, because we reviewed the original and we actually we reviewed the remake or anything as well. I'm pretty sure you watched it. You may have just forgotten.
Who is it in the lead part?
Stephen Price is played by Jeffrey Rush. He was the stand-in for Vincent Price's character.
Okay, well, it for me it wasn't the same.
That's true.
It's forgettable. I forgot I even fucking saw it. I saw it because of your show.
Yeah. I will watch it occasionally, but I still prefer the old black and white original. I do.
Well, I like Jeffrey Rush, but
I do too.
You can't remake those old movies. They're from a certain era. Last Man on Earth. You can't redo that movie now. You just can't. Any of those.
Here's one that they should not have remade, and I'm glad it's been more or less forgotten, but the original has remained in the public conscience. The Day the Earth Stood Still.
I don't think I've seen that.
The original or the remake?
I don't think I've seen either. The Spielberg one, right?
You need to see the original.
Is it Tom Cruise?
No. In the original? No.
No, in the new one.
No, it was Keanu Reeves.
Yeah, that's why I haven't seen it.
Though you love John Wick.
I do. Yeah, Keanu is a situational actor. He's a situational actor. He's not good for regular parts. You have to put him in something. It's like The Matrix, John Wick. You've got to put him in something where he's an action hero guy, man.
He is. I agree. He was also good in the Bill and Ted movies. That's where he kind of got his start, was the Bill and Ted movies.
Have not seen those either.
You should. At least watch the first one. The sequel wasn't horrible. It does have some redeeming qualities. Of course, you have George Carlin back as Rufus, and you have Bill and Ted going through the afterlife. Okay, we were talking about
are those Kevin Smith films or no?
No. Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure and Bill and Ted's Bogus Journey Kevin Smith had nothing to do with either one of them, as far as I know.
There's some of those goofy ones, man, that I have no interest. It's not that I wouldn't like them. I have no idea. But when I see stuff like that, I get the feeling it's not for me.
Okay. Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure is a time travel movie back when time travel movies were the big thing in the 80s, with Back to the Future and so on. Bill and Ted's Bogus Journey, they end up dying. And do you know the actor Bill or William Sattler?
Yeah, of course.
He plays Death in Bill. Huh?
Shawshank.
Yeah. He plays Death in Bill and Ted's Bogus Journey, and he is wonderful. Absolutely wonderful.
Yeah, I like William Sadler. He wasn't he the president in Iron Man 3?
He was, yes. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I like him. Underrated guy. You should
check out that movie. Huh?
Underrated guy. There's another one.
So, yeah. Just for William Sadler's performance as Death, you should check out Bill and Ted's Bogus Journey. But Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure, the premise is very straightforward. They are a pair of college or not high school airheads who are trying to pass their history final. George Carlin plays a character named Rufus, who is from the future. And he comes back in time with a time machine shaped like a telephone booth. And they travel through time and meeting all these historical characters like Billy the Kid, Genghis Khan, Sigmund Freud, Abraham Lincoln, and so on.
Horrible.
Oh, it's wonderful, dude.
Oh, that sounds terrible.
No, you should watch it at least once. Watch it once, and I'll leave you alone. But you should definitely check out. You should we were talking about personifications of death and how the one in Sandman was good. Bill Sattler as Death in Bill and Ted's Bogus Journey. He is worth just the viewing alone because he is so great in this. He really is.
I can't really picture him as Satan.
No, he's not saying he's Death. He plays Death very well. It's more of the classic design. He's got the pale skin. He's got the bald head. He's got the big hooded cloak. He's got the scythe and everything.
Funny portrayal, or is it serious?
It starts out serious, but it gets more comedic as the movie goes along.
Ooh, dude, we forgot one. Ian McKellen as Death in The Last Action Hero.
Never seen it.
Oh my God, that might be one of the best.
Never seen it, but
Ian McKellen.
I'll have to. I never could get into it. I never could. I can never get into The Last Action.
That's your kind of movie. What are you talking about? Charles Dance playing the bad guy with the bullseye eyeball? Come on. That's right up your alley.
It just never piqued my interest. I don't know if it was the marketing or the fact that particular film with Schwarzenegger just didn't hit for me, but I never bothered to check it out.
Did you like Arnold?
Now Are you effing kidding me? I love Arnold.
Then how have you not seen it? That's one of his best. That's one of his best films.
I liked him better in True Lies. I'm going to eventually, I'm going to do a review of the 2 Conan movies with him because I was able to find Conan the Destroyer on DVD and Netflix currently has Conan the Barbarian on there. And I need to finish watching it. I'm about halfway through, but I loved him in the Conan movies. I loved him in practically everything I've seen him in. Just with Last Action Hero, it didn't appeal to me.
Wild. This might sound wild. You know who I would cast as Mr. Freeze in the upcoming Batman films?
Who?
Arnold.
No.
I'm serious. No, I'm serious.
No. Absolutely, emphatically no.
No.
After his
wait.
No. Nope.
He was shackled by Joel Schumacher.
No.
Okay.
Nope.
Give him another chance.
Nope.
No. I really think it could work. Give him another chance. Do a more cerebral.
Nope. Mm-mm. No. Anybody but Arnold.
No.
Literally anyone but Arnold. No.
Arnold could do it. He got fucked by Schumacher, dude. That whole character was a mess.
Schumacher got screwed by got screwed by the studio as much. Schumacher got screwed just as much by the studio as Arnold got screwed by the script. No.
Yeah, well, how do you do a good job with I'm trying to think of an ice pun here, but I saw a review of that movie. There were like 45 ice puns in that film. How else do you play it with the costume and everything? He could be a good Freeze if I directed him. I'll tell you that.
No, I'm sorry.
Yeah, he could.
He's tainted. He no one will watch him. They cast him. That movie is doomed. They need to go in the direction with the animated series or with the video games. But cast Arnold
if you have him yelling. So I saw him in a movie called Maggie, okay, and I thought he was superb. And he did this nice little somber performance, and it was great. The dude has range, but if you want him yelling goofy lines, it doesn't work. You could take that same dude, I think, and make a better Freeze with him. I have no doubt.
I'm sorry, but the public conscience, the public's memory about our Schwarzenegger as Mr. Freeze, they'll never accept it.
People love a redemption, don't they? Right?
I don't mind a good redemption, but there's no redeeming that performance with the same actor but a different director, because everybody's going to be looking at him the same way. All they're going to remember is the ice puns and the bad suit design. I'm sorry, that suit design stunk.
So it's too far gone.
They need to go the direction with Michael Ansarina's performance from the animated series and from the video games, because even Clancy Brown's portrayal as his voice performance as Freeze in the other Batman animated series. Go that route.
Let me throw some names at you. Stellan Skarsgård.
If he isn't busy making Dune, sure.
Okay.
Although after this movie, that one I would absolutely. Now, okay, I did a Mr. Freeze video back a couple of years ago discussing the history of the character and who I would love to see. Liam Neeson.
Ooh, damn, that's a good one.
Or
Liam Neeson. That's a great pick.
Or even Diego Luna.
I like Liam better.
I know. That was just a couple that I referenced. I was like, who would y'all like to see as a live action Freeze?
Well, just you know who I had. So, if you don't mind, we'll throw out some dream casting here. Okay, Hugo Strange, Skarsgård was my pick for that.
No, I could see Stellan as Hugo Strange, definitely.
Did you hear who they announced for Lex Luthor? Nicholas Hoult.
I saw that and I was like, I could see that.
Oh, he's too young. He's too young. Number one.
If they're wanting a younger Lex, he's a good pick. If they wanted an older Lex, they'd have to pass somebody older, but they're wanting a younger Lex, which I think is actually a good idea because you're going to have a younger Superman. So I think that works.
I don't think young Lex is a good character. You need old, established businessman Lex. That's what you need. Go back to the Gene Hackman ones. I mean, that character was introduced into the zeitgeist as a formidable, competent person.
Yeah.
Which is why another name that came to mind was Giancarlo.
Giancarlo Esposito, he could have worked, yeah.
I think so.
Clancy Brown's voice performance as Lex in the animated series, he was a really good Lex, even though we never saw him in live action, but his voice performance and how they animated Lex for that show, he was a really solid Lex. I'm not gonna lie, if they ever bring Darkseid into the new DCU under Gunn, I'll tell you who I would love to see have them bring back if they do Darkseid as a CGI character, which they honestly should. Michael Ironside, if he isn't too old.
No, I don't think he's too old.
Well, I'm saying whenever they get around to it, if he's not too old and he's willing to do it, I think bringing back Michael Ironside as the voice of Darkseid would be perfect. That's not to say that the guy that did Darkseid for the Snyder Cut wasn't good. He was, but Ironside's voice had a very different quality compared to Ray Porter. They didn't have to do as much alteration with Michael Ironside's voice compared to Ray Porter's for those performances as Darkseid.
Is Sam Jackson a wild choice for Lex Luthor?
No, but I think he's kind of pinned in unintentionally. I don't think he's a bad choice, but him currently playing Nick Fury in
too much superhero.
Yeah, because he's already he's well established as Nick Fury, and I've really liked him as Nick Fury. I'm actually looking forward to Secret Invasion. That looks like it's going to be an interesting story. I'm just wondering on the terms of the timeline if it takes place before or after the Marvels, because Nick Fury makes an appearance in the Marvels. I know that's probably one you're not going to see, and that's fine. But that's a fan.
I'm a little marveled out, overall.
Yeah, I know.
How do you feel about Tom Hardy as Luthor?
He could work if he's not working on Loki or anything, because
not Tom Hiddleston. I don't think it's Tom Hardy.
Oh, Tom Hardy. Yeah, he could work. He could work. I think he'd bring a different aesthetic to Luthor, but yeah, he was a good Bane. I don't care what people say. I loved him as Bane in Dark Knight Rises. Me too. He was so much better. He was so much better than the Bane we got in Batman and Robin.
That thing wasn't even Bane.
No, it wasn't. Not even close. No, Tom Hardy is Bane, and Tom Hardy is Lex Luthor. He could work potentially. So, but I'm going to actually wrap up here in just a minute, but I'm final thoughts on the Sandman.
Well, I mean, you're seeing a TV show done properly. You're seeing everything kind of come together. You've got good writing, good dialogue. You've got well shot scenes. It looks like a film. It's original. Yeah. It's unique. No, I found it to be pretty intriguing. It was a quick watch for me. The show didn't really meander around. You had great set pieces throughout the show as well. Like even the first 2 episodes at Charles Dance's estate was great, where you get these little set pieces for a couple of episodes, and then you move on. The show had energy to it.
Yes.
Like even Charles Dance trying to kill the bird. A lot of fun little small details in the show throughout. Good casting.
Oh, great
and just
casting.
Well done. And just overall a well done show. I think I gave it like an 8.2 out of 10, something like that. 8.1, 2, 3.
I'm going to be a smidge more generous. I'm going to give it a 9 out of 10, but a flat 9, a 9 out of 10. Okay, we'll touch on this one point briefly. I talked about this while you were away. The episode, okay, I know it's been a while since you watched it, so I'll try and give you as much context as I can. David Thewlis's character, John Burgess, goes to this 24/7 diner. And
oh my God, I forgot about him. I remember.
You forgot about David Thewlis, didn't you?
Yeah. Oh shit. One of my all-time favorite actors, dude. His character was fucking superb, wasn't he?
He was. I was a bit on edge with that episode, if you recall it, because he's saying in this diner, he's using Dream's Ruby, which he has manipulated to manipulate people to tell the unabashed truth.
His name was John, right?
John Burgess. The IMDb page gives him the credit as Dr. Destiny, but in the show they never reference him as that. They just call him John Burgess, which I thought was good.
He was a weirdo, man, with his mother coming in there, and he's in a mental asylum.
He's in a prison. Yeah, he's in the mental ward of a prison.
Did they tell us why he's in there?
Yeah, because of you have him using the Dream's Ruby.
That's right, but he didn't have it when we met him.
No, he didn't have it. He had put it in storage, or his mother had put it in storage. No, he had put it in storage before he got put in prison. And he goes and gets it essentially, but he ends up in this 24/7 diner where he uses the ruby to cause people to express the worst parts of their nature.
Are you sure it's not their true thoughts?
It's their true thoughts. Yeah, he makes them confront their own lies, the lies that they tell themselves. But Morpheus comes in, and he's like, "You're destroying these people with my ruby that you've altered. You're robbing them of their dreams." Because it's in the dreams that we have that we are able to evolve and change as individuals. And he's making them confront the lies that they tell themselves. But at the same time, he's robbing them of their dreams. So who's the bad guy here? Is Morpheus or is John?
No, John is.
Yeah, John is the bad guy here. But which is worse? To live in a dream where you hope to be better, or to face the cruel harshness of reality?
Oh.
That's the interesting aspect of the episode.
Do you want me to answer the question?
Yeah.
That's a tough one.
It is.
Yeah. I would say I don't know if people can survive without dreams. I think hope and the concept of the future is something we have to hold on to.
Yes.
I find it to be very important. It's like it's something that differentiates us from every other living creature, is we can plot ahead and think to the future.
Yes. I agree, because there's one particular couple and everything that Dream focuses on. And it's the couple and everything, the married couple. I won't go into the race; it's not important. But he talks about the husband wanting to prove that he can be more than he is to his father, because his father always ran him down and told him that he would end up being nothing. And the wife proving that she can run a successful enterprise, run a business, and not just be a powerless woman, essentially. And what ends up
all very positive. That's positive. And self-delusion is not necessarily a negative thing. It can be, but confidence is important. Confidence, and it's like all right, I won't go there, but you look. Well, okay, I will. You look at somebody like Donald Trump. Okay, that's a dude who self-deluded his ass into the White House. For 40 years. We have the best. We have the most grandiose. Listen, it's not true, but it might boost your morale as a salesman. That's it, in my mind, a good example.
It's I will look at it this way, where I do agree with you in part. He's trying to get the American people to believe again. And that in itself is not a bad thing. Does he go a bit over the bounds or out of bounds? Yes, I will agree with that. But I don't believe his intent to be malicious. I believe his intent to be altruistic.
Well, I'm saying in relation to what you were talking about, the concept that my apartment is the best apartment in New York is not true.
Yeah.
But it served him well, didn't it?
It did. It very much did. Yes. And, that's the great thing about a character like Morpheus, the Sandman, because he says people come to my realm to dream about something better, to express what they couldn't express in their living world, and maybe take that inspiration back into the waking world and keep going.
Okay.
And
well, he was also a character who would consider what was before him. He didn't have a locked in mindset all the time. That's important too. He would consider stuff case by case.
Yes. Well, it kind of comes back to his decision to take the life of Rose Walker's great grandmother rather than taking her life, because he gets the option. Unity Kincaid gives him the option to take a life that has already been lived rather than taking a life that has barely been lived. And because Unity Kincaid is a very giving individual, she considers her life not as of greater value than her great-granddaughter's, because her great-granddaughter may go on to do something good with her life. And she ends up doing so because, if you remember, she ends up writing the book. And there's a scene between Morpheus and Lucienne in the library where she's like, Unity Kincaid's book is in the library. And he's like, what do you think? She's like, it's good. She's like, it's very good. She's like, you may not entirely agree with her personification of the King of Dreams, but she's like, it's worth your time. And Rose does end up going off and doing something good with her life, as does everybody else around her. Because if you think about it, when she's the dream vortex, she's allowing people to experience their dreams in a more in-depth way and actually say to themselves, particularly with her one friend or anything, the guy that owns the bed and breakfast that his grandmother passed on to him as part of his inheritance. He wants to be in show business, and he performs as in a drag burlesque. Well, not burlesque, but he performs as a drag queen, as a singer. And I won't get into that whole conversation. This is not the place for that.
Good for him.
All I will say is this: drag performers have their place, and they are for. They have their place, and that's for adults, not for children. But
that place happens to be located in California.
And in a particular club called the Birdcage in South Beach, Florida, if you remember that movie.
Yeah. Good movie.
So, great movie. Love that movie. Have it on Blu-ray. Saw that movie with Mother Ambassador. It's one of my all-time favorite movies.
That's so wild. Gene Hackman and Robin Williams.
Gene Hackman and drag. Gene Hackman and drag. Tell me that's not hilarious.
That's taking a risk. Good for him. That's doing it for the art. You know what I'm saying?
Well, in terms of the service of the story, it works, but he does not make a good-looking woman at all.
That was a wild movie. I haven't seen that shit in a long time.
So, but to put a bow on this, to give my score for the Sandman, I give it a 9 out of 10, and I have high expectations and high hopes for season 2. So, but that's going to be the review for tonight, folks. I do want to thank everybody who tuned in tonight. Of course, if you catch us on the replay, leave your comments down below. And I do want to thank my friend here, my fellow ambassador, Mr. Zach Lear, for joining me this evening. I will be going live again on the 28th with my double feature retro review of Batman 89 and Batman Returns. And I've got more in store coming up for June, so keep your eyes and ears on my social media on Instagram and Twitter. So, but Zach, you have a good night, buddy. Appreciate you being here.
Thank you. Good to see you, man.
You too, buddy. As always, folks, stay ambassadorial. That means be honest, be truthful, be sincere, but never take yourself too seriously. And if you do all those things, you always have a place in the Ambassadorial Wing. See you next time.
Let's be friends.
Have you not?